remember they're changing my voice, and if you've been following the whole series by now, you know how to interpret Proverbs pretty well. 1. Proverbs 23:1. When you sit down to dine with a ruler, note well what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you are given to gluttony. Do not crave his delicacies, for that food is deceptive. Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. So this has implications on Revelation and who ends up being tortured by God and who is right with God in the divine order. Okay, because the eagle is brought up several times in the Bible, including in Revelation. Also, the birds of the sky that feed on the flesh, okay, of the enemies of God in in Revelation 19. Okay, so basically it's saying, don't pursue worldly wealth, pursue righteousness. Okay, I've never heard of anyone who's pursued both and attained both. My dad is a brain surgeon. He dedicated his money to helping people out, and he never really stacked a bunch of money at once. This is important to note. Do not eat the food of a begrudging host. Do not crave his delicacies, for he is the kind of person who is always thinking about the cost. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. Okay, so it is with women who marry rich people. Their heart is not with the female, or they wouldn't be an evil person in rebellion against God. Okay, they chose money over God, and they're calculating more often than not, to keep it simple, whether their wives are worth it, whether to upgrade to a younger wife when they get older, so on and so forth. You will vomit up what little you have eaten, and you will have wasted your compliments. So basically, make a long story short, it's a waste of life to pursue the rich and to pursue people who are outside the divine order. Do not speak to fools, for they will scorn your prudent words. Do not move an ancient boundary stone or encroach on the field of the fatherless. For the defender is strong, he will take up their case against you. So do not encroach on the rightful place, okay, of the righteous. Do not unnecessarily abuse the wicked. There's all kinds of applications for this saying, but they all must be interpreted within the boundaries of righteousness and justice. Isaiah 28:17 makes that clear, and common sense makes that clear. Okay? And God is the defender of the righteous, and it's stupid to violate my rights, and so on and so forth. Apply your heart to instruction, your ears to words of knowledge. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish them with a rod, they will not die. Punish them with the rod and save them from death. Everyone should have raised their children right. You see how this is a recurring theme in Proverbs. One of the main lessons from Proverbs is raise your sons and daughters right, so they grow up to obey God, okay, and to date the righteous. Okay, so saying raise them right, date the righteous, not the rich, not the people who take the rich's side and rebel against the Royal African Falcon top martial arts order by being in cultures that are allowed instead of obeying God through me, etc. My son, if your heart is wise, then my heart will be glad indeed. My inmost being will rejoice when your lips speak what is right. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but always be zealous for the fear of the Lord. Again, so it says, raise your kids right. Don't let their heart envy the rich and the wicked and the popular kids. Okay? They need to be zealous for God. So not only should women not have shunned me, they should have been very enthusiastic, very zealous to scramble to obey God through me. Okay? And some would argue that women who are zealous for the righteous man created the jealous wickedness, but they're stupid. The wicked were always there. They're always trying to control social life and behavior and get people to be their slaves and idolaters and so on and so forth. Okay, let's see here. There is surely a future hope for you, and your hope will not be cut off. Listen, my son, and be wise, and set your heart on the right path. Do not join with those who drink too much or gorge themselves on meat, for drunkards and gluttons become poor, and drowsiness clothes them in rags. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Okay, they're talking about Father God in heaven and Mother Jerusalem in the sky. Buy the truth and do not sell it, wisdom and instruction and insight as well. Okay, so again, when a female yokes herself to a sinner, she's brought herself in the life of sin. She's supposed to, by her actions, okay, buy, so to speak, buy the truth and not sell it. Wisdom and instruction and insight as well. They're supposed to, pay the price of accepting the consequences for obeying God through me, and then they gain wisdom, they gain instruction through me, and they gain insight, etc. The father of a righteous child has great joy. A man who fathers a wise son rejoices in it. May your father and mother rejoice. May she who gave birth be joyful. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes delight in my ways. For an adulterous woman is a deep pit, and a wayward wife is a narrow well. You see how it always goes back to wives, who you should be around, who you should marry. It goes over it again and again and again. This is part of why I'd imagine that most churches don't go over Proverbs. They don't go over Proverbs from the beginning to the end, okay? Because they're institutions of white supremacy. How are they going to say, by wisdom and instruction, and the throne is established through justice when they've established their church through their white supremacist network and not through justice? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Again, for an adulterous woman is a deep pit, and a wayward wife is a narrow well. Babylon is a dragon of sorts, a deep pit. Bone, Babel on, baby El on, baby El is the Canaanite deity on, Baal Boni, Baal Y be on, and there's all kinds of things to that effect. So Babylon's wordplay basically says, it's saying, why obey God, obey Zeus. Zeus is Baal's Greek equivalent, Jupiter's Roman equivalent, Set is his Egyptian equivalent. So it's saying, why obey God? They want you to obey Set. And Set, is like the shorter Jew is a good example for what the followers of Set tried to look like. Okay, for Baal, it's that too, but it's also a kind of bigger craftsman shape. Okay, that's a good example. Now, just because someone has this shape, okay, doesn't by itself definitively condemn them. But of course, these people are all outside the divine order right now, so in a sense it does. It's really when you see that conformity, when you see them rejecting the Royal African Falcon top martial arts order and the accompanying life and morally precise code, okay, that's a good sign that they're part of Babylon's system. Like a bandit, she lies in wait and multiplies the unfaithful among men. So it's not a coincidence. There's a lot of these people. Okay, and so is the tall, skinny guy. I mean, every kind of shape you see, okay, isn't a coincidence. People in sex cults, especially in the West, went way out their way to breed certain shapes. Apollo was kind of tall and skinny. He's a pagan deity. Apollyon, the destroyer, right? A deity of science and knowledge, and these things are destroying things, right? The tree of knowledge, okay? And you see the different shapes. Zeus is kind of thicker and so on and so forth. Hephaestus, the deity of craft, and so on and so forth. All right. The righteous, okay, again, remember, the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil, while the wayward woman, Babylon, and all the sluts that conform and are outside the divine order, so on and so forth, all the females who have kids, they're multiplying the unfaithful, and otherwise, really, because they're leading by example, and that also makes sure that the unfaithful, they're multiplying the unfaithful, okay? They make sure that these unfaithful keep multiplying, and that's why there's 8 billion unfaithful people in the world about. And it's just me, and my parents are blameless, So, who has woe, who has sorrow, who has strife, who has complaints, who has needless bruises, who has bloodshot eyes, those who linger over wine, who go to sample bowls of mixed wine. So again, wine can stand for blood, but it also stands for the life of a drunkard, okay, literally. Do not gaze at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a snake and poisons like a viper. So as it stands for blood, it can also stand for bloodline, reproduction, marriage, okay, and so on and so forth. So it's saying don't reproduce with those outside the divine order, no matter how smooth their talk is, okay, because at the end, they poison like a viper. They poison your genes, they poison your soul, what have you. Your eyes will see strange sights, and your mind will imagine confusing things. Again, I talk about mental clarity. Okay, those who walk in the way of rebellion against my rule, okay, they walk in the way of wickedness and injustice, and so on and so forth. And their mind is confused. They think being an arrogant, rich person, a conformist person, what have you, a sort of craftsman slime, okay, they think it's okay. You will be like one sleeping on the high seas, lying on the top of the rigging. They hit me, you will say, but I'm not hurt. They beat me, but I don't feel it. When I wake up, so I can find another drink. What's interesting is recently some Hispanic person was beaten to death in East San Jose, not far from where I live. Um, his name was his street name was Lay Low, and I knew somebody named Lay Low, and there's a song that say he better lay low, right? And he was beaten to death on King and Story. Okay, for whatever reason, as I get to certain parts, they tend to do things like that. Okay, that are connected to what I'm reading. So he was at a bar, right, and it talks about drunkards, and it says, and he was beat to death. And I also said in my series, I said there's one reason, if it's worth fighting for, it's worth dying for, especially when you're a grown man, especially someone's big and stronger, you're gonna get jumped or something, because people do get beat to death. They get beat crippled. They get beat to death. So if people are gonna hit you with the force of like a baseball bat or something, you're dumb if you don't stab them. You're dumb if you don't shoot them. Okay? Because why be fucked in the head the rest of your life when you could have just defended yourself? And it should be easy enough to make the case that you were afraid for your life. And I've seen cases like that where they beat the case. You see what I'm saying? Okay, real quickly, I wasn't saying that guy should have done that. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't have done that. Okay? This reminds me of what I've been talking about in my martial arts series. Okay? So it's stupid to say you want to train to be a UFC fighter and fight by the cage rules in the street. Okay? There's people have bottles, knives, guns, what have you. You have to use your head.